Good afternoon. It's 4 p.m. here on the West Coast in Los Angeles. It's Michael here from Sugarproof. And hi everyone. Hi. And I'm going live today. I'm excited to go live with the author of this fantastic book. See if you can read it backwards. My Superhero Foods. It's this kids reader book that was developed by Haley and Dr. Tarek Pasha. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. We'll find out in a minute because they're going to come on live and we're going to talk about this. It's a great little book that they sent me, and I've struck up a relationship because they're doing fantastic work to promote healthy eating for kids. So we will answer all your questions about sugar in particular, of course, my favorite topic. And in case you haven't seen it yet, because I know I've been showing it off lately a lot, is our new paperback, Sugarproof, just out on paperback. Same content as the hardback. And let's see if we can get somebody online here to talk about my superhero foods. I've just invited you in, Haley and Tarek, if you're there. So you should be getting hello.
Hey, Dr. Goran, how are you?
Yes, Michael is much better. That's we can drop the formalities. I am well. Yes. How's it going over there?
It's good. It's cold, but good.
So did you get blasted with that storm last week?
Yes, I got a little caged in, about 11 inches of snow. I had to get security to get my car out of the parking lot so I could get home.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
But builds character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Well, yeah, thanks for setting this up and for reaching out. I was just telling everybody that I got the book, my Superhero Foods, which I just read it again. It's really fun. Who wrote that? Who came up with all those cute rhymes and stuff?
We did. A team effort.
Team effort.
Yeah.
Yep.
With a little bit more on her end, but I put in the punctuation, maybe a few words here and there. She's the creative.
Yeah. Is that your background in creative writing? Or what is your background? Like you seem to be a master of many. Is your background in nutrition or in writing or some combination?
Oh, thanks. Actually, neither. So
Neither,
my background, is in finance, believe it or not. But I've worked in the medical field for the last 17 years or so, and then just had kids. And as a result, I've kind of always been obsessed with nutrition. And then it was really amplified after having kids. And, you walk the aisles and you see all the scary ingredients in food, and it's like just trying to protect them. And it's a tough job, but that's why we love your book. And we're excited to talk to you about really just the dangers of sugar, because I feel like added sugars are everywhere you look. They seem to be in like almost every product. And
And we came across your book. I actually came across by chance at a bookstore, and it just caught my attention, the hardback version. I said, "Oh, this looks really good." I just flipped open the book and I said, "Wow." We were really taken aback. We bought the book. We've devoured it. We've even signed up for your, the conferences, the Sugarproof conferences, and the work that you and your team have done have been fantastic. And we owe you, and actually, frankly, the United States, or all of us, owe you for this great research. It's very, very important. Teaching our kids and teaching the parents of our kids how to best give them the best chance at living a fulfilling and successful life. We really appreciate all your good work.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that comment. Appreciate that, because we don't often get that level of appreciation or gratification. And it's good to know that you found us in a bookstore, because that's not happening too much these days, unfortunately. But more and more,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we actually kind of like talked with our followers before and asked for questions.
Okay.
And we have quite a few. So we'd like to just dive right in if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah.
So, but first of all, we're a little bit curious. How did you come to being a sugar researcher? Because that's quite a niche.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it didn't start off that way. My focus I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years, so it's always my research has always been focused on childhood nutrition and trying to understand the connection between what kids eat and how they grow and how their health turns out, not just when they're kids, but when they grow up to be adults. So we've been doing that research for many years and done many studies. And actually, in the beginning, we weren't even really too focused on diet because I was worried that we couldn't measure it good enough. So we're looking at exercise and environment and genetics and household environment and all kinds of stuff. And eventually we did start looking at diet, and what kept coming up was not just the dietary findings, but we were looking broadly at the diet, trying to find anything in the diet that connect with childhood outcomes. And it always tended to be sugar that popped out of those analyses. So it wasn't something that we started off picking a fight with. It just came out of the analysis as the recurring diet. And it's not the only factor, for sure. This is all very complicated.
Sure.
But it's the dominant factor that kept recurring in multiple studies. And so I've been following my yellow brick road of the data that we found, and this is where we've ended up. And it turned into a story that I wanted to reach a broader audience, because the truth is, not a lot of people read our research papers. So I've written, almost 500 research papers, and maybe 100 people will read them over their lifetime. So it's kind of disheartening. So I wanted to write the book because I wanted to accelerate that process of getting the latest scientific information to families like yours and mine and everybody else who's listening, who could apply it to their daily lives.
Reminds me a little bit of a Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm is a famous popular writer. A lot of the ideas that he popularized are not really his ideas, but he has the skill to get it out to the public. And a lot of the research papers that would have never been read, sometimes the academicians kind of get upset. Well, half of these aren't his ideas, but everybody knows him for the 10,000 hour rule or these famous ideas he's able to popularize. And I think, what you're doing and the book you're doing and what we're all trying to do is present it in a way that people will benefit from it in a day where not many people are reading.
Yeah, and it's families that we wanted to reach. There's so many popular diet books out there. I've got a whole collection of them, but how many of them really are targeted towards families?
Mm-hmm.
And really, we're not. You read a diet book and it tells you need to eat this diet so that you will get this effect. Well, that's not what's going on in families, where we're feeding not just ourselves, but 4, 5, 6 people, how many ever people that have different kids of different ages, kids of different needs. So how do we really apply all of this dietary information, not just to ourselves, but to our family? And that was something we wanted to really focus on in Sugarproof, because so many of these diet books are all very prescriptive, but prescriptive isn't going to work in a family, because don't know about your family, but mine, everybody's different. We all have slightly different tastes and slightly different issues going on. I have a meat-loving daughter and a vegetarian daughter and an intermittent faster parent, and it's like, how do you put all that together?
Sure. Nutrition is so personalized, and it makes sense that you didn't start off initially targeting sugar, because like we talk about, for so long it was fat that was demonized, but not really sugar. And you even being a physician, it's like we just thought, okay, we count our calories, we're good. Skittles are the same as a grass-fed hamburger, and
a calorie is a calorie.
A calorie is a calorie. But
yeah. That's what I was trained on. And just as a disclosure, I'm not a physician, so I'm actually a PhD researcher. But all my research has been with kids, and I work with a lot of pediatricians. So I don't actually treat, but we have done dozens of studies in families and hundreds and thousands of people. So, but I'm not a licensed physician.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's the reality of what you were saying there.
The great irony is the one who knows is not teaching is not dealing with the patients, and the ones who do deal with the patients, us physicians, are terribly inadequate. We get about 2 hours to 3 hours well, when I went through medical school, and it was scoffed at. It was basically said, nutrition, nobody will follow. It's not important. Let's talk pharmacology and let's talk surgery. It was always, but as we now are beginning to realize the effects of sugar through your excellent work and your team's, your research team's excellent work, and we're very indebted to you. It's this, the inequality of correct knowledge, and the ones who are dealing with the patients don't have it, and the ones that do have it are writing papers that nobody's reading. So we have this big.
Yeah, there's a gap in it, but I mean, I love the collaboration, and what I like to do is connect the dots. There's lots of like dots of information and dots of knowledge, but it's connecting that knowledge and applying it in a holistic way that's going to be of benefit. That I think is very powerful, and so that's what I kind of enjoy to do is to connect those dots.
That's well great. Done. Yeah, thank you. So we'll just jump into some of our questions that we had. The one that came up the most was, what is the limit of sugar that you recommend daily? And so I know the American Heart Association says 25 grams of added sugar a day, but you guys actually have a really wonderful table in your book, and you've made it specific to the age and actually specific to the gender. So for example, I know my 4-year-old, I think you recommend 15 grams of sugar or less a day. And for my 7-year-old, it's 19 grams of sugar. So how did you come up with those grams, and why is it so important to really try to stick to that amount of added sugar a day or less?
Yeah, so, well, we came up with that because all of the recommendations, like you mentioned, and all of the official recommendations to date just give one number. Sure. But we all know that a 6-month-old is not the same as a 16-year-old or a 19-year-old. Yeah. And so we came up with a strategy. We published a paper and we put it in the book. And it's based on the overall recommendation, which is less than 10% of calories. That's the general recommendation, by the way, so we're talking about added sugars. Sure. We're not talking about the sugars in whole fruit. I have no hesitation with whole fruit as long as you're not eating like a pile of it all at once. Sure. And we're not talking about the sugars in dairy products like lactose. Those aren't added. So we're just talking about sugars that are added in processed food, and in that I will also include juice. Mm-hmm. Technically, it's not added sugar, but it's liberated sugar from its natural source. Unfortunately, the U.S. Department of Agriculture doesn't call those added sugars.
I heard you on a live the other day, and you said it so well that actually fruit juice, apple juice, has more fructose than high fructose corn syrup.
That's right. Yeah. I'm glad that message is getting out because I've been saying it over and over. But yeah, because everybody knows, high fructose corn syrup, sure. run away from that. But apple juice has even more fructose, but it sounds healthy and good, but it's actually more fructose. Anyway, to come back to your question, I wanted to translate all that to make it useful again for families because of the age variation. So we just took the energy requirements, which are published. We know what the typical energy requirements are by age, and then took 10% of that and translated that into grams or teaspoons. Now, having done that, I don't think we're trying to say that you need to go off and measure everything that you're consuming. I don't think there's value in that. Okay. I think the value is in being aware of it and being aware of what's in things that you make and things that you buy, generally relative to the recommendation. So if you know that your daily recommendations are, let's say, 15 grams of added sugar, if you're about to buy a yogurt and it has 15 grams of added sugar, that should, that should send a signal that it's probably not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it's meant for those kind of purposes, not for the purpose. I don't really believe there's value in like counting every single gram. We don't want to become that obsessive. I think there's a danger of that backfiring.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And we really try to preach to the importance of reading labels. Because like you said, you just kind of have this idea of how much sugar you should be consuming a day. And it's mind blowing when you look at the back of a yogurt or peanut butter or, bread, and you see all of the ketchup. Yeah, you name it. All this added sugar.
It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened to me last week. My daughter decided she wasn't taking lunch to school. We were trying everything. Finally, she said, "I'll take a bagel." I'm like,
mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll take that win. So I'll take the bagel win. I went to buy some bagels. It was at Whole Foods. Bought some bagels and just didn't even really study it because I thought, oh, it's Whole Foods, can't be that bad.
Yeah. That's a joke in our family too. It's healthy if it's at Whole Foods,
cookies.
Right?
You can eat all the cookies.
Yeah. But it turned out that each bagel had 5 grams of added sugar.
Wow.
Okay, so, and there's perfectly decent bagels that don't have any added sugars, and it doesn't even taste sweet. So that also tells you that the added sugars are in there probably to mask the taste of other stuff that's in there, right?
Yeah.
So that was these things happen. So I'm saying that just because you're not going to be perfect every time. I'm not perfect every time.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
We could argue too that maybe that added sugar was maybe a bit addicting, or like maybe to somehow cause a craving that you may reach out for those bagels next time. Again, not trying to be conspiratory, but added sugar, our brains light up when we do get that sugar, whether we recognize it or not sometimes.
Yep. And I don't know. You can never prove it, but food companies are definitely trying to achieve the bliss point.
Yeah.
The bliss point is the level of sweetness of a food at which satisfies a certain percentage of a focus group that they will want more of it. And so those 5 grams probably help Whole Foods get to the bliss point for that particular bagel.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I don't know. It's so frustrating. Even you mentioned bagels. Our daughter actually can make beautiful, wonderful bagels. There's no sugar in them.
Okay, no, I'm coming to Michigan.
Always welcome.
I want a bagel.
It's incredible, but that's why we try to, as much as we can, we don't want to limit or like demonize desserts. But as much as we can make at home, I think the better, because we control the ingredients. I think you guys have a similar like philosophy where most of the time when you look at an ingredient list and you see sugar, you can cut that sugar in half. And we even like substitute with like a honey or sometimes maple syrup. And it tastes just as good. The kids don't notice the difference.
Correct, that's right. And it doesn't affect I think a lot of bakers are concerned that it might kind of interfere with the baking quality or the consistency. But you can definitely cut sugar by 30%, maybe up to 50% too, without it affecting stuff. So that's one of the best tips I have, really, is just if you're making something, just cut the sugar from the recipe down. And then use a mixture, like you said. It doesn't have to be all white processed sugar. You can use some coconut sugar, you can use a bit of honey, you can kind of mix and match as well.
We use a lot of ripe bananas too. We do a lot of muffins and dates, stuff, and dates. So actually,
somebody's just commented, since you mentioned that, they made the Sugarproof banana bars, and they're great. And the Sugarproof banana bars is just mashed dates, oats, and some nut butter.
That's good.
And you bake that in the oven, and it's kids can make it. It's so simple.
It sounds
It
amazing.
does. We should try that. We'll definitely try that.
I'm jumping ahead, but since we're on, you mentioned coconut sugar, and then we have more of the natural, like the real sugars that occur naturally in foods like bananas and dates and fruit.
Yeah.
If you had to rank sugar, so we know artificial sugars are awful. We know high fructose corn syrup is awful. But you know, if you had to rank like a sugar, a coconut sugar, stevia, monk fruit,
Honey, maple
I
syrup.
think maple syrup and honey would probably be at the top, but actually I'm curious, how would you rank those like kind of healthier sweeteners, if there is such a term?
We spent a lot of time thinking about that when we wrote the book because we knew the question would come up, and we wanted to make sure we had kind of a philosophy on that. So we rank the less processed sugars as okay. I mean, I have them in my pantry and would use them. Coconut sugar, it's less processed. It's a more sustainable crop in sugar cane. It does have a little bit of fiber in there, and it has a slightly, I think, preferable taste profile. Raw honey and maple syrup would be the others. So those are less processed sugars that I think would be the healthier choices to make. A lot of people turn to agave. We're not big fans of agave because agave is very high in fructose, and we can talk about why that's a problem.
Yeah.
So but then, as you said, using the whole fruit or a dried fruit in a recipe is what we've done in the book. So we challenged ourselves in the book and in all of our new recipes that we're developing to not use any added sugar, to see what we could come up with, or what Emily could come up with. She's the creative genius in the kitchen, without any added sugars. So like the muffins, for example, that we make are very popular, just sweetened with a banana and the blueberries. And for a long time, dried fruit was demonized because it's very concentrated. If it's dried, it's concentrated sugars and it's high glycemic and all that. But you know, the science on this has changed a lot. It's very different if you're eating, let's say, raw, dried mango versus using mango in a baked product as a sweetener, because there it's mixed with the fiber and the protein and everything else. So the glycemic load of that mango is not as high, or the dates or the banana. Plus you're getting all the fibers from that whole fruit and the natural flavor.
Yeah, I think that's another big one when you talk about just the natural flavor, just how much these artificial sweeteners and these even low calorie sweeteners are just really messing with our taste buds too. I mean, if kids are exposed to all of these added sugars at such a young age, how are they going to find something like raw blueberries and strawberries tasteful?
Are you turning on my lecture on sweeteners, or because that's a question I also get a lot, which is a very common issue right now. And I think what we're seeing is food companies responding to this issue of being asked to reduce sugar, but what they're doing is just coming up with products using these alternative sweeteners to reduce, rather than reformulating and saying, okay, how can we make this taste just as good but with less sugar or sweetener? They're just saying, okay, we'll just throw in some stevia or throw in some sucralose. And it really worries me, primarily because of what you said, because it doesn't taste natural. I mean, even people say, oh, it's natural. Stevia is natural. Monk fruit's natural. Has anybody ever tasted a monk fruit?
It's bitter.
Monk fruit tastes awful. They have to process it to remove all the bad tastes and the bad smells. And so what's happening is, A, it doesn't taste natural, and B, it's got this ultra not natural sweet taste that's long lingering with aftertastes.
Yeah.
So we're kind of not training kids to recognize natural tastes. Instead, we're training them to accept something that's ultra sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, we just did a reel today on, we have an 11-month-old and she's eating sardines and olives and I mean, just like the stuff
Avocados.
yeah, avocados. I think a lot of kids are eating avocados nowadays, but like grass-fed butter. I mean, just things like mackerel that you wouldn't expect a kid to eat, but we haven't given her any processed foods yet. I mean, we're trying to protect her taste buds as long as possible. And the reality is that she's really loving like lemons. I mean, all these different flavors that your taste buds, your natural taste buds appreciate.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
I
that's
was
great.
going to give her a puff one time. It was one of these little puffs. She came at me with the scissors.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm sorry, and I'll never do that again.
I'm not that extreme.
Well, just,
kind of, but not that extreme.
But
Well, that's great. Yeah, I wouldn't have predicted mackerel would have gone, or sardines would have gone down well in a 1-year-old.
She loves them. I would say to your point, you were saying about the sweeteners, even what you classify as low calorie sweeteners. You know, you've got the artificial, you've got the sugar alcohols, and then you've got the natural sweeteners. They're up to 1,000 to 10,000 times or 100,000 times sweeter than sugar, as you were saying. So, and then all the processing, as Dr. Robert Lustig would say, it's not so much what the food is.
No, it's not what's in the food.
Yeah, it's what's been done to the food. Right. So this idea, like the monk fruit, when you're talking about it, how they had to process it so much, is it really monk fruit? I mean, heroin, poppy seed is processed into heroin, right? So, you know, it's at the end
that's the thing. Like, it's not compatible. Like, there's this whole movement for away from processed foods, but all these like keto products that are high in monk fruit and proprietary blends of oils. I mean, these are highly processed foods, and that doesn't solve this whole issue. It's still highly processed, so that problem can introduce other issues. And even as you said, some of these sweeteners now, I think the record is one neotame is 20 to 30,000 times sweeter, and so if you put like a teaspoon of that in your bathtub, your bath water would taste like a Coca-Cola.
Wow!
So it's so powerfully sweet that only a tiny amount is needed that's below the threshold of food companies having to disclose it as an ingredient.
I read that.
Yeah.
That was your reading. I read that. That was mind-blowing. Yeah.
And so that's advertised on their website. If you look at the website of the producer, that this is a positive for them. Oh, it's so low that we don't even have to disclose it as an ingredient.
We were talking about that. I said that
I think
from your writings,
That's why it's just so important to just find trusted brands. Like, we love that Hue brand of chocolate because you really, I mean, there's still at the end of the day, it's added sugar, but at least you know that it's just like the coconut sugar and it's nothing else. And I feel like there's more of these like brands starting to pop up, but still, you know, it's funny when we kind of started our Instagram page, our thought was we want to educate kids on organic and the importance of like grass-fed. And then all of a sudden we were quickly like, whoa, like we need to step back and just talk about, you know, how to read a food label, industrial seed oils, added sugars, and just start from like, you know, because
it humbles you quickly. You think, you know, especially.
And it's not just the food label is one thing. And then unfortunately there's the ingredient list. Which is another thing. So parents are got to be like food detectives to figure out exactly what's in some of these
I think you list in your book like what over 100 different names of sugar, and it's like, and then they use different names so they can use more sugar, but you just can't realize it because it's different. It's in a different order, you know, versus being the first ingredient or second ingredient. They can put it in multiple spots. And
that's right. It's up to 260 names for sugar now. So
that's crazy.
Companies are getting pretty smart because instead of putting it as number 1 and number 2 on the ingredient list, they can have 5 different sugars buried down the ingredient list.
Yeah. So one of the other questions that we had is oftentimes, like, I'll just hear, oh, kids are young, they can eat whatever they want, you know, now. And once they get older, they need to start worrying about it. So I was wondering if you could just walk us through, there's some literature out there now. I know there was that Harvard study, I think you guys talk about it as well, about how it's actually shrinking your brain. So can you talk about that in relation to a child's developing brain, what it specifically is doing? And if you cut out the sugar, can you reverse those effects? I mean, I'm like thinking like really scaring people here now. Like, no, this is serious in your kids.
Along with what she just said is also this movement where you kind of present sugar to kids as something normal. You know, don't make it a big deal, and it'll become normalized, and the kid will normalize himself or herself. And that's kind of a movement as well. If you want to speak to that, you know, that's kind of a, I don't know if you're familiar with that movement.
Not really, no.
Okay. Yeah, so in addition to the shrinking of the brain, which I'd love to hear, you know, what's going on, there is this movement. I think it's, I see, yeah, it's just more of just normalizing dessert so that you're trying to avoid any sort of kids growing up with eating disorders and thinking, oh God, you know, dessert is bad, I can't have it.
Yeah.
And you just, it's the same as, you know, a hamburger on your plate. It's the same as the broccoli on your plate. And so the thought is that over time, when you just, you know, that's part of your dinner, that eventually the kids, that appeal will lessen and the kids will sometimes not even eat the dessert. And so we've kind of tried it a little bit. I feel like it didn't work because of all these added sugars, because these foods are engineered specifically to get our kids addicted. I mean, they can't fight this added sugar and these food scientists whose sole goal is to just get them addicted. So we tried it. I don't think it worked, but it is, you hear of that a lot, that approach. So kind of throwing a lot at you.
Yeah, that's a lot. So I mean, in terms of the effects on the brain, so that study that we cite in the paper, and it's been well cited now in the internet and so on. It's in adults, and it's showing that it's in a large cohort of adults. I think it's from the Framingham Heart Study, which is a large population-based study of adults that we've been following for decades now. So they have remarkable data on decades-long diet in these individuals, as well as their health outcomes. And what they found was that adults who were habitually consuming more sugary beverages had a smaller brain. So that wasn't a big effect. It was a small 2%, 3% reduction, but it was still significant. And I don't want, 0.01 smaller for brain, right? We all want bigger brains, not smaller brains. So now we don't have that data in kids, but we do have studies to show, quite good studies, large studies to show how high amounts of sugary beverage consumption in childhood can affect performance on standardized test scores.
Yeah. I saw that, and across lots of different subjects too. You guys listed.
Yes. That's a fairly large study looking at different academic outcomes in kids. So we do know that, and we have also, we have more detailed mechanistic studies from animals, from mice. Of course, our kids aren't mice or rats, but nonetheless, we can do pretty sophisticated studies and show how specific areas of the brain are affected by sugars because the brain becomes inflamed, for example, or because it alters the neural development of networks that's happening. And of course, a lot of this has to do with kids and how the kids' brains are building or developing. Very, very, very critical periods of brain development. So nutrition during this period will have an impact and could have long-lasting impact, because some of that could be changed, some of it might be irreversible. We don't really know for sure on that.
I love how you even have a section in the book about pregnant women, because that, I mean, if you think about it, that is really when the brain is really developing. I think that's when we need to be extremely careful. And a lot of times, I think the belief is just, I'm pregnant, I'm going to put on weight anyways, I might as well just like live it up right now. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, given this research that's out there about how much sugar the brain.
One quick point.
In fact, here's a secret. The original, an earlier version of Sugarproof was just focused on what we call secondhand sugar. So it was just focused on the effects during pregnancy. And my editor said, "No, you got to make this broader. You know, this is a much bigger issue. You got to spread it out." So because the studies do show, I mean, just to get to your point, that now this is a very sensitive area. Okay, I'm not a woman. I've never been pregnant, and I'm not here to tell you what to eat or not what to eat during pregnancy. Sure. But I'm just here to give you the latest science on this, which is that sugars do cross the placenta. Of course, some of that is required. The developing fetus needs sugar to develop, but excess sugars can be damaging, especially fructose and even the sweeteners. And in fact, there's new research, several studies showing that sweetener consumption during pregnancy can have long-lasting impacts on the child.
So you're talking about all the artificial sweeteners like stevia and equal, and I mean all the.
The problem is it's because these sweeteners are used so broadly in the food supply now, and they're often used in blends and stuff. It's very, you can't separate them out in any study. You'd have to actually do a study. You'd have to feed pregnant women different types of sweeteners and follow them for 10 years and see what happens to their babies. Nobody's ever going to fund that study.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have to look more broadly, just generally in the diet, and it's very hard to separate them. But I would say, like, why would it be any different? Ultimately, these sweeteners all work through the same mechanism. They activate sweet taste receptors. So if they're natural or synthetic, it's still doing the same thing in the body.
And you could argue that anything we tend to make in our food supply, we tend to screw it up. We tend to do Frankenstein stuff like trans fats, and we've high fructose corn syrup. Everything we tend to kind of manufacture or make, I don't think we've done anything right. I don't know if you may have an example of something that we've engineered to be decent for us. So
versus real.
Yeah.
To think about that one. Yeah.
It's actually just blowing my mind too, going back to that your whole book was originally going to be on secondhand sugar or in pregnancy, because you don't have a long section in there, and I feel like it's such an important topic. So I don't know, maybe it could maybe it could be a second book.
She took a lot of DEA, DHA, and EPA, and was big on the fish oils during pregnancy. For her, for pregnancy, it was really extremely important. So that's a big topic and big important, which thankfully I'm glad you did all that.
Yeah.
I've never been pregnant, so I didn't take any.
All right. Well, we want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah.
So in your book, you have this section on just doing the 7-day detox. And so I thought it would be, at least for me, I'm super motivated by hearing other people's successes. And so I thought maybe you could speak to some of the families that you've worked with that did the 7-day detox and just these amazing benefits that they saw so quickly by eliminating sugar.
Yeah, so the 7-day challenge is one of the tools that we recommend. And might not work for all families. So we've done this with hundreds of families. It tends not to work in families where maybe your partner is not on board, maybe your kids are rebelling against it, in which case we have another plan called the 28-day plan, which is a bit more stealth. We can talk about that. But the 7-day plan, we have the process, the guides to doing that, including how to talk to your kids about it and getting everybody on board to sign up to this commitment. And again, it's not to give up sugars forever. It's just to say, well, what's going to happen if we just give up added sugars for 7 days? And from that, you discover all the sources of hidden sugars that are lurking around your house, and you'll find out that your ketchup's full of added sugar, so you'll find an alternative source that is probably much healthier. And then, the first couple of days might be tough, especially with young kids. It's going to be difficult. But for virtually all families that we've worked with, it's after 2 or 3 days, there's remarkable remarkable effects that we hear back from families, and mostly things like things that you see. So we don't know what's going on under the skin, but we know from studies there's lots of improvements going on, but just from disposition and mood and concentration, much more stable concentration. I mean, literally several cases of kids who were falling asleep in class in the middle of the day, the middle of the morning, had reported much better energy, much more stable concentration in school. And this is all to do with stabilizing blood sugar levels, which we know as adults, we know is important.
Sure.
And again, there's no reason why it shouldn't be also true for kids, but it's just something we don't typically think about. We're getting kids fed breakfast, we're getting them out the door. I know I've been there, getting kids out the door quickly with something to eat, and there's not a lot of time. So, and the typical quick solutions to that are very high in sugar and cause these big sugar spikes. So the 7-day plan is going to basically reset all of that. It's also going to dampen all those cravings for sugar that got amped up from all the sugar. You can bring that down. It's actually just like you can amp it up by taking in sugar, you can also bring it down with less sugar, so that at the end of the 7 days, next time you give your kid juice, you might say, "Oh, this is really sweet."
Yeah.
Recalibrate the test buds.
So it's a Control-Alt-Delete for your sweet taste preference. You basically recalibrate it.
It's amazing to me that, you know, you see these like really big differences in such a short amount of time. I think it just speaks to how dangerous all this added sugar really is. So that's incredible. And I mean, your guys' book is just awesome. I love that you have amazing recipes to do and replacement of all of those added sugars, like you said, with a lot of just sweetened with bananas and dates and go ahead.
Oh no, and the science is excellent too. The first several chapters, I mean, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm taking a crash course in biochemistry. But it's fantastic, but well done. And I believe anyone who puts a little bit of effort can understand it. It was written, it's not written for the scientist. It's written for, you know, anyone who puts a little bit of effort, wants to dig a little deeper, wants to know the why. It's just a fantastic book. We can't recommend it enough.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my editor kept bashing me over the head with, nope, you got to simplify it some more. You got to keep simplifying it. This has got to be news that you can use.
Yeah.
Why is this research important to families everywhere? And so that was the mantra in my head when I was writing, was just trying to keep it simple and translatable.
I know you said you're starting to work more with pediatricians, nutritionists. Do you feel like more of this message is just being received and people are really wanting to like make a change?
I think I think so, yeah. But I work with people, with pediatricians who probably are already, passionate about this and interested in this. Is it making a difference across the country? I mean, I hope so. I mean, that's what keeps me going. So I hope it is.
I would assume too. You're in LA. You're at UCLA, and I think California. I believe they tend to be a little bit more on point than some of maybe the Appalachia or the South. Or I think there might be regional disparities in the sense or inequalities, and they don't know the information quite as well. And you'd be surprised what's being pushed or what's being taught from pediatrician to patient. So I think there's a huge gap, and I think sometimes we live in little bubbles where like, oh yeah, of course juices. Several years ago, my son, we thought apple juice. I mean, I would buy apple juice religiously, 100% apple juice, and I thought that was good for him. And again, I'm a physician, and I went to medical school, and so there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, I think your impact is a lot more than you might imagine. I think there's just certain areas that are more kind of insulated than others.
I just think you need to be in like every doctor's office, like playing on the TV. That's in the
or at least a copy, or a copy of your book, or
well,
something.
that would be fantastic. We're about to do a series of webinars with dietitians across the country.
Right.
Just putting the finishing touches to a couple of PowerPoint slide decks that will be presenting to dietitians everywhere. I think we need to do that to school teachers and dentists. Dentists are pretty turned on to this issue. I have a lot of dentists that I've met through the social media that are very passionate and committed to this topic.
My sister's a dentist. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about the other day about it. She's about sugar and the dental caries that she sees some kids.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your strong work. We too believe that it starts with the kids, which is why we were inspired to write this children's book, because it's like, why do you wait until you're 40 to learn this information? Like, let's teach this to them now. And then, so we're also trying to we're starting to go in front of the schools and talk to parents and stuff, and just trying to spread this word as much.
The principals, we reached out to some principals as well. We think if we can get it into libraries, get in front of principals, and just kind of spread the message. And like I said, we rely heavily on a lot of your team's work, your work, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, for those tuning in, this is your book, my Superhero Foods, which is kind of a fun. Who did the graphics?
Oh my gosh, her name's Liz. She's an amazing. Actually, we have an indie publisher that we found. Her name's Saya Lee Wood, and she's incredible. And so she helped us find Liz, who did the illustrations, and Saya was kind of like the art direction, and a team effort. But they were great. We're so happy to find them and work with them. We actually have another book coming out on sleep, so we're just trying to child.
Right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And what's interesting, a lot of stuff that we saw when we were looking originally, we're book nerds. I mean, we can't get enough books and thousands of.
We have yours. I don't know. I was gonna set up your book.
Did you get the?
Not yet. Looking forward.
No, we have the original one. This with the sugar cubes on the spoon.
Yeah. Pretty soon you'll have this version too.
We've this cover. Yeah, this is cool.
We're looking forward to the autographed one. I appreciate. We're nerds like that. But we were just looking at all the kids' books, and there really wasn't any kids' book with a little bit of substance. At least what we were hoping with this book is throw out some words in a kind of a pithy, musical way that's a little bit more than just eat apples because they're good for you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the idea was, can a kid understand what antioxidants are? Can a kid understand MCTs and coconut and olive oil, and to start putting these and associate with some type of a superpower, maybe it will create some enthusiasm and passion to try some of these foods. And it's kind of like the McDonald's approach, right? I remember we would ask to go to McDonald's. It wasn't our parents, because they marketed to us, the kids. Mm-hmm. And if we can give the bug to our kids and get them excited about broccoli or about avocados and make you jump higher or whatever, wouldn't it be cool if you told your dad, hey Dad, I want to try an avocado, or hey Mom, can you buy some coconut oil or olive oil?
We saw it. They go to the playground and they're like, we're playing tag today. We need to run faster. So we need this food to help us run faster. It could work.
I think what it gets at is this idea of finding the internal motivation, and you explore a lot of possibilities in there. And I think that's kind of a secret to a lot of this thing, is that finding the internal drivers for your kids, what really motivates them. And all kids are different, and we as parents probably don't have a pretty good idea of what those motivations are. We tend to throw external rewards at them.
Yeah.
But I think the research, the science shows that the internal motivators, if you can have kids latch on to an intrinsic internal motivation, it's much more likely that they will make a change and follow a path towards doing something different.
It's really well said. Yeah. Well, I don't have any other questions. I just want to thank you again for your strong work in this field. And we love your book. We read it cover to cover. We give it as gifts. It's for those listening, it's a must read. It's a must read. It's written in a way that's easy to understand. It's super motivating. And then the recipes in the back are wonderful. And then your 7-day, quit sugar plan is incredible.
I believe it's a book that will age well. Sometimes what happens is it's not recognized quite yet. And as time kind of goes and people start to wake up, it will age in a way that, oh, wow. I mean, and those books are priceless, timeless. And we look forward to the further research. We look forward to any types of collaborations, working together to really working to get the message out.
Yeah, happy to do that. I love collaborating. I've met some wonderful people through this process, and the publisher for that situation uses the term evergreen. So they keep telling me this is an evergreen book.
Yeah.
That will will last a long time. So yeah, we got more recipes coming out. So check out our website, sugarproofkids.com. It's Valentine's coming up. We have a new recipe hitting tomorrow, I think. Emily's been busy. We're making sneak preview here. Mango thumbprints with strawberry chia jam.
Ooh, that sounds amazing. My kids love mango. Yes. The one she did today, it was a raspberry yogurt, frozen, topped with like some seeds and raspberries. That we're trying that this weekend.
That's our other Valentine's special that we're also promoting. That one, I think we developed that for last Valentine's and we're using it again. But the thumbprints, the mango thumbprints with chia jam. Have you ever made chia jam?
No.
It's so easy and really tasty. It's basically you just boil down the fruit. In this case, slice the strawberries, boil it down, and then to thicken it at the end, you just add some chia seeds, and it just like thickens it like a jam. So not only does it thicken it into a nice consistency, but you get some extra fiber in there.
Wow, that sounds really good.
We should do that.
Yeah, we should. We when we had all the snow days and all the snow hit, we made little so what are they called? I can't think of it. The snow cones. Oh, and we boiled down. Actually, our daughter boiled down blueberries and oranges, and we did a little bit in, but then over actual snow and made snow cones. So it kind of reminds me of that. But
I love So I'm a big. We talk about blueberry compote in the book a lot. I mean, you can use that in so many ways. That's a great idea. What a fun project.
It was so fun. All the kids loved it.
So it's the same. It's the same thing. The chia cheat at the end just kind of thickens it up a bit more. So it's not as runny.
I can see how that would make for a really good jam.
Yeah,
I'm excited to look out for it tomorrow. To see it come.
I think it's going to hit tomorrow.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I just approved. It's going to be on the website tomorrow.
Good.
Or maybe even tonight. Emily, are you awake? No, she's fast asleep. It's 8 hours ahead. She's in the UK.
Okay.
So I think when she's up in the morning, it'll be posted.
Well, you're asleep. Yeah.
Well, whilst I'm asleep, that's how we wrote the book. It was pretty amazing because we basically could work 24/7 because she would write in the night and then I would get up and take over and we would pass versions back and forth.
Yeah. Nice. It obviously worked really well because it's a masterpiece.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to meet you and thank you for all you're doing as well. I think we all got to beat this drum. The more people who are beating this drum, the bigger the message is going to get.
And it's nothing more important. Thank you.
All right.
Any other ones?
Nope, I think that's it.
You have a great night.
All right, great. Let's do it again sometime soon. Take care, y'all.
Sounds good. You too. Take care.
Okay.